Be a Killer from a Full-Time Hunter Chapter 121-140. Chapter 121 _ In hotel room. Qigong listened to Xiaoji's answer. Although he was a little surprised, he was more happy for his idea. Sure enough, if you just accepted the money Yi lent you, you probably wouldn't use it. The hands are swung to the sides, and the odd Peppa Party horseshoe crab is about to be pregnant. Although borrowing money is a quicker way to get money, this is an unacceptable way for a strengthening system like Xiaoji. I was a little surprised when this kid opened his mouth. Liu Li came directly to Xiaoji's side and kept patting his shoulders with his hands. Seeing this scene, Yi recalled his past. In the past, he also had such close friends, but when he came to this world, everything became different. He can't go back to the boy he used to be. The blood vine is eaten by you, and I don't need to stay here any longer. I'm leaving. Say hello. 14. Knight turned and left. He ignored the lingering voice behind him. For him, this blandness has nothing to do with him. Since he embarked on the road of being a killer, he has been prepared. Walking on the streets of Ukexin City, the phone rang from my pocket. Spider Chief Kilolo. Drip tilde. The phone was connected, and a familiar voice came from it. Crollo, what's the matter? Holding the phone, Yi opened his mouth to ask questions, but did not take away the consciousness of the brigade's goal at all. The voice was cold and flat. It's nothing, I heard from the knights, you met with them today, and they got along pretty well. For Yi's inquiry, Crollo did the same. His tone was also flat, as if nothing could attract his attention. Just asking, but it is his own team members. It seems that he doesn't care about auction items. In this regard, Yi continued to chat along his topic. It was still early, so we could talk slowly. Anyway, Xiao is no longer in his hands now. Fortunately, occasionally playing the game of Meteor Street is full of memories. The other side. Inside the abandoned church. All members of the brigade gathered. Wojin's figure is also among them. This may be related to the blood vine that Yi brought. But even if Yi knew that the plot had changed, he wouldn't care. Crunch tilde. Hearing Yi's casual tone, Wojin crushed the stone in his hand. He played with the enemy under the hillside for so long, just to attract the arrival of the yin beast, so as to obtain the whereabouts of the auction items. During this period, Yi came to the brigade and waited for the arrival of one of the yin beasts, and played poker with the other members. If that's it, it's no big deal. But the key knight was the yin beast member who was carrying the auction item, which made people uncomfortable. Relying on the first-hand information, there was a slap in the face of the Phantom Brigade. Before cutting Hu, there was still Face playing poker with the other members of the brigade, and the two together were like playing the Phantom Brigade as corn. Such behavior simply blows the nest up. Shish tilde. Crollo turned around, made a booing gesture at Wojin, and pointed to the phone, indicating that he was still on the phone. Helpless, Wojin could only hold back his anger and looked at the knights and the others beside him. Seeing Wojin looking at himself, the knight felt a little embarrassed. After all, before the accident, he invited Yi to play poker. In this regard, the knight also expressed his innocence. You were all born in Meteor Street, why is your heart so dark? It can be said to play with me, eat my food, and finally bully me. Beside the knight, there are the ashamed Xiaodi and the annoyed Phaeton. Xiaodi did not expect that he would be deceived in his first activity. Phaeton was angry that he believed Yi so easily. Only Nobunaga, Maggie, and Franklin were expressionless. It doesn't seem to care about this. A soft ring came from the phone. Why, what happened to you, do you need my help? The cold voice seemed a little curious about the movement just now. This made Wojin in the distance even more annoyed. Relax, I won't be in danger here. Speaking of which, Yi, do you have a commission now? Crollo ignored it as much as possible and changed the subject by the way. No, the latest commission has been completed, and there is no commission now. In that case, I have a commission. I don't know if you are interested. A soft smile appeared on the corner of his mouth. As a killer, there is no reason to refuse the commission. At this moment, Krollo seemed to have regained control of the rhythm in his own hands. However, no, I'm not interested. Come to Yukishin to relax, and have no plans to continue taking orders. Yi's icy voice also represented his attitude at this time. Although it is true that he is a killer, it does not mean that he does not have his own rest time. After completing many tasks in a row, the feeling of exhaustion has already spread all over his body, but the rest time has been delayed again and again, and it has been directly delayed until now. Krollo's expression froze. It seems that since the separation, something happened to Yi that he didn't know about. At least the attitude towards him is more casual than before. Is it an illusion? After a moment of silence, Krollo spoke again. Well, the commission is very simple. It just requires you to follow us in the coming week. Reward, with a dark sonata, how about that? The other side. On the way back to the hotel, the voice reached Yi's ears through the phone. The action of preparing to hang up stopped, and the pace of walking began to slow down until it completely stood in place. Dark sonata. Okay, but only for a maximum of 3 days, and needs to be paid in advance. As for the dark sonata, Yi was a little curious about it. Now that he has collected a score, he doesn't mind adding another. Inside the abandoned church, a soft smile hung on his face. Yi's information is too rich, which can be known from the first contact between the two. This time, the cut hustle shows this even more. Rather than letting him dangle outside at will, it is better to take it with him until the event is over. In 3 days, Krollo had the confidence to retrieve the auction item. Chapter 122 Yukishin's night is too long. Roar and howl. From time to time permeates this sinful capital. A luxury hotel meeting room. 10 men of different looks sat around for a meeting. One photo after another was placed in front of them. If Yi saw it, he would realize that this was the gang of yin beasts he had seen before. The yin beasts, except for the owl, have all been wiped out, compared to everyone who has already received the news. Silent for a long time. An old voice broke the silence. You must know that yin beasts are the strongest capable troops under our command. Even they were almost wiped out. It can be seen that the strength of the enemy is strong this time. He raised the photo in front of him and gestured to the other 9. After hearing these words, the other man couldn't help but ask. Dunlop, what do you mean? Just leave it alone. It's not just about the auction, it's more about the face. The face. As if a precedent had been set, the others spoke up one after another. That's right, the most important thing is face. This time, 14 families sent a pursuit force, but only members of the Nasla family survived, and even the yin beast was left alone. I heard that only one person was sent across. If we don't handle this incident well, we will lose all our face in the dark world. Words of a few people. All heard by the original old man. He began to close his eyes and thinking about the gains and losses of eliminating the phantom troop. His fingers tapped the table in front of him from time to time. Make a crisp sound. Quite a while. His eyes snapped open, and from the firm look in his eyes, it could be seen that he had made a decision. Since the phantom troop doesn't give us face, then we don't need to worry about anything. An old voice came out of his mouth. But the courage in it cannot be worn away by age. Hire killers, hire the world's famous killers with abilities, and use them to deal with those guys in the phantom troop. I don't believe that a mere A-level gang of thieves can compare to the famous killers in the world. After thinking about it, the other figures said they had no objection to this decision. Seeing this situation, the old man's expression of satisfaction appeared on his face. Then, since everyone agrees with my decision, it's better to recommend a few killers to each other. I think everyone has some experience with this. Next, a series of names were reported. Table code. Yi Lu. ... Those who beat the enemy Haka, please come here. The killer caught by Xiao Xiao today is also quite strong. Please invite him too. 10 minutes later. A form with lists of dozens of people was sent out. Then, the content about the Phantom Troupe has come to an end. Let's start the site selection of the second auction. The old voice sounded again. Dash 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 dash. The sky is bright. The sun shines through the floor-to-ceiling windows of the hotel, spilling into the room at night. The figure who meditated cross-legged and closed his eyes on the bed was also awakened by this warm light. It's dawn. Feeling the slowly increasing strength on his body, Yi Qi got up to wash up. The increase of blood vine is not a one-time increase, but more of a subtle increase in the body. These 3 days. Even if there is no night to exercise. Consolidating the growing Reiatsu just by meditating, this also surpassed the results of his practice in the past month. Had breakfast. Leave the hotel and head towards the Phantom Troupe base. This time, I didn't fly directly. Since it is a rest, it is also an option to take a walk all the way. Half an hour later. The figure of the abandoned church has been reflected in the night. At the top of the church, there is Wo Jin with a look on his face. Judging from the breath on his body, he should be ready to fight. But when he saw that it was Yi Shi, the excitement on his face disappeared instantly. Dissatisfaction is directly portrayed on the face. In this regard, Yi remembered Cube's replica, which seemed to have the function of a circle, which could tell him the surrounding environment of the replica. This ability is somewhat similar to that of a cat-reading beast. Both can have a circle effect on the extension of the mind. I ignored Wo Jin and continued to walk in the direction of the abandoned church. And Wo Jin's figure disappeared quickly after seeing Yi, presumably to communicate with other members. After a while, when I came to the main entrance of the abandoned church, a few malicious breaths were waiting there. Ignore it. Go straight to the center of the church. The entrusted object this time is the head of the Phantom Troupe, Krollo, who has nothing to do with the other members. Before seeing the client, Yi didn't want to conflict with anyone for the time being. Come to the center of the church. Krollo was watching with a book in his hand. Judging by the bloodshot eyes in his eyes, he probably read the book all night without sleep. Yo tilde Yi. Beside Krollo, there are Knight, Shouty, Franklin, Maggie and others. See the knight come. The knight greeted him as always. It was as if yesterday's events never happened. You're here, it seems time flies so fast. Hearing the knight's greeting, Krollo, who was reading a book, seemed to have reacted and closed the book in his hand. Say hello to Yi. Delegation, and commission remuneration. It's a pity that Yiki just wants to hurry up and start his commission now. Coupe de Lise, Lolo's smile didn't change, it was still as soft. Of course, the entrusted remuneration is paid in advance, which we negotiated yesterday, and I will naturally not break my promise. Left hand outstretched. A red book appeared in his hand at some point. Wow tilde. The pages kept flipping and eventually stopped on one page. On this page is a photo of a female capable person and information about her abilities. Marcus. Age, 51. Persons with the ability to manifest kinship. Abilities. Marcus's cosmetic bag. Ability status. Not dead. Ability introduction. Realize a palm-sized cosmetic bag. You will find that this cosmetic bag can never be filled with hooks. Pink cosmetic bags appear out of thin air. P.S. The person is on the train going home. The update time cannot be determined, and only one chapter can be updated first and the remaining 4 chapters are sent in the morning. Chapter 123_. Marcus's makeup bag. This is an ability that Krollo stole while traveling around the world. The Abel is an old woman who is very famous in the local area. It is locally famous for having an inexhaustible cosmetic bag. After hearing the rumor of the old woman, Krolo became curious about her legend. When I came to the town where the old woman was, and confirmed that it was a real thing, I easily stole this ability into my hands. Although the color does not match his own temperament. And this ability is somewhat in conflict with the ability of Shouty. But I have to say, this ability is really good. Not only did it solve the problem of loading treasures when leaving the ruins, but it was also equivalent to adding an infinite package to himself. A pink cosmetic bag floats in the air. Krolo reached out and took it off. Not long. A tightly packed box was handed to Yi. Yi opened it up for inspection in front of Krolo. Without any hesitation, the two of them are entrusted with the entrusted relationship at the moment, like the Dark Sonata. Such precious items, of course, must be checked in person. Krolo didn't care about that. Such a cautious character can live a long time in this world. Quite a while. With the sound of the box closing, Yi's breath slowly calmed down. Yes, it's genuine. Put the box on the inside of your clothes. Since Krolo has shown his sincerity, Yi doesn't mind telling him something, which is not important to Yi, but important to Krolo. The yin beast, the owl with the auction item, is still in Ukexan City. As for revealing consignment information, don't be kidding, who cares about this stuff, not to mention that for Yi, it's just the same task conditions as Dark Sonata. Who cares about his life and death? Krolo's face became warm. Obviously, Yi's extra news was not bad for him. Thank you for your information, then for the next 3 days, please follow me and be dispatched at any time. Just message to message. At this time, he was Yi's employer, so he naturally had to make good use of these 3 days. It doesn't matter, it is within the scope of the entrusted content, as long as the requirements do not exceed my bottom line. In response, Yi pressed down the black top hat on his head. It's just the number of dispatches, only once is enough. After all, although Dark Sonata is precious, it cannot reach the point where Ling Yi betrayed himself. This point, Krolo should also be clear. This is a condition that neither of them said, but they knew very well. The members of the brigade who were watching around, saw that the cooperation had been achieved, and the hostility that was originally caused by Yi taking their target slowly dissipated. No matter what disputes have arisen before, after becoming a partner, it will all come to nothing. This is the rule of the Phantom Troop. It's like one of two ways to be a member of a brigade. Kill the original member and replace it. Regardless of the relationship of the other members to the slain member, the existence of the new member must be acknowledged and there must be no conflict. Cut, it's really hot. Wojin looked at Yi who came to wait around for his team members. Force yourself to suppress the anger in your heart. Well anyway, Yi can be regarded as one of our people now, and it is useless to worry about the previous things. The kind-hearted knight appeared next to Wojin again. And compared to Yi, you are now more about finding ways to drink more beer and relieve yourself, otherwise those bugs will hatch in your bladder, and then boom. While talking about Wojin's status quo, the knight made a gesture in his hand. Obviously, he knew all about the situation Wojin might face next. Cut, if it weren't for the toxins and bugs, the chainsman who attacked yesterday would not have easily escaped. Hearing the ridicule of the knight, Wojin was also annoyed. Yi did not know when, got close to the two and listened to their conversation. About what happened after he left. Although Yi didn't care, it was necessary to collect information in time. Go on, I'm curious. Looking at the two people who stopped talking because of their own arrival. Yi motioned for them to continue. Cut. Wojin spat to the side. Clearly angry about what happened yesterday. Matilda just after you left yesterday, the yin beast started to fight with Wojin. You didn't see it. The situation was really like a gorilla fighting a little ant. The knight didn't care at all, and said what happened yesterday carelessly. As a result, he was suddenly pulled to the ground by a yin beast, and he was injected with toxins that made him immobile. It was at this time that he was buried by another yin beast with a leech that exploded his bladder. Yi Yi nodded from time to time to show that he was listening carefully. Although all of this is no different from the performance in the original book, it is enough for Yi Yi to collect a lot of information. Just the next moment, the news that the knight said began to not match his memory. At the end, when we were about to wash out the poison for him, suddenly a chain shot out from the place where you and Maggie had found the capable person before, tying the nest tightly. Thanks to what you found out before, Phaeton and Nobunaga were vigilant there for a while, and cut the chain off before Wojin was taken away. Narrated here. The knight's face became serious. We already know that there is someone with power lying in ambush there, but he can still touch Wojin without knowing it. Obviously, according to the ability of this chain hand, he has the ability to threaten the safety of the brigade. We don't know how many chain hands there are in the gang. Therefore, we need to act more cautiously than before in our next actions. Listen to the analysis of the knight. Yi Yi had to admire his ability. With Kurapika alone, many conclusions can be drawn. It can only be said that it is indeed the only existence in the brigade who can replace Krollo to lead the spider. Pop. Krollo got up and clapped his hands. Instruct everyone to look at themselves. Chapter 124 _ Krollo got up and clapped his hands. Instruct everyone to keep their eyes on themselves. This moment, everyone's eyes are subconsciously cast on Krollo. Yi Yi was alone, closing his eyes and thinking about something. Since we now know who is capable of taking away the auction items, our next action is to find this yin beast called Owl and bring back all the auction items he took away. Krollo ignored Yi Yi's contemplative look. Begin to give orders to his team members. If you encounter such a chain hand on the way to find the owl, don't show mercy, just kill it. The soft smile has not changed in the slightest. It was as if the order he had given was as simple as a daily conversation. There is nothing special about it. This is the daily life of spiders, killing and bloody. For this, Yi Yi didn't have the slightest resentment. Perhaps it was his 2-year career as a killer that made him accustomed to killing, or the birth of his predecessor, Meteor Street, made him accustomed to death. Night 1 at this moment. It unexpectedly matched the Phantom Troop. After Krollo's order was issued, everyone in the brigade began to look for people they were familiar with to form a team and prepare to go out on a mission. As for the knight, on the other hand, they waited quietly in the abandoned church with nothing to do. Stay here quietly for 3 days, or replace it with a chance to get out. This is Yi Yi's deal with Krollo. Obviously, this time, Krollo didn't intend to waste it here. I closed my eyes boringly, ready to meditate to pass the time. It's a pity. I didn't expect that the green fruit that was only half ripe at the beginning turned out to be fully grown. It's really surprising. A perverted fruit farmer. Like Yi Yi, he did not choose to go out, but also stayed at the brigade's base. Before eating the fruit you've been fascinated with for years, try an appetizer. Seems like a good option too. After enduring it for so long, he no longer wanted to endure it any longer. At this moment, he was already staring at Yi Yi. I just said why such a good card was drawn today. It seems that even fate seems to be cheering for our encounter. Hisoka's slender eyes stared at Yi Yi coldly. The thoughts on his body rushed in the direction of Yi Yi. This moment, the thoughts on his body were like scarlet blood, and a faint smell of blood permeated the surroundings. Obviously, during the years of killing, his killing intent has gradually merged with his own thoughts. Facing Hisoka's thoughts, Yi Yi just frowned. For Yi Yi, this level of bloody smell is not enough to affect him at all. Just being provoked, you can't pretend to be ignorant and ignore it. The substantive killing intent that erupted from his body instantly charged towards Hisoka. Boom tilde tilde tilde. The killing intent of the two kept squeezing and colliding. The walls of the abandoned church split into countless cracks in an instant. The abandoned house shook tremblingly. The old wooden boards on the ground are even more fragmented. The situation of the confrontation soon changed. Yi-Yi's substantive killing intent crushed Hisoka without any suspense. The substantial smell of blood permeates the abandoned church. After only supporting for less than a second, Hisoka's killing intent was defeated. A bloody ocean appeared behind Yi-Yi. Countless monsters struggled in it, trying to escape the terrifying sea of blood. But the final result, without exception, all sink here again. And Hisoka himself appeared in that sea of blood at some point. Ha, ha ha, ha ha ha. In the face of this kind of killing intent that makes ordinary people collapse. Hisoka laughed out loud instead. Flushing covered his face. This substantial killing intent not only did not obliterate his will. On the contrary, it further stimulated his desire to fight Yaiki. The first time I met you, it seems that I was experimenting with hunters. It's amazing to have grown to this level in such a short period of time. His hands were twisted around him. Hisoka had suppressed the desire for a long time at this moment, and it burst out completely. Even ignoring Yi-Yi's substantive killing intent. Accompanied by frantic laughter, he hurried towards Yi-Yi, and two playing cards appeared between his hands. Yi-Yi was surprised that a person of this level of ability of Hisoka was able to ignore his own killing intent. This was somewhat unexpected to him. But that didn't mean he was afraid of Hisoka. The difference in level between the two can be measured not only by a single killing intent. Did not get up. He just raised his hand and aimed at Hisoka, who was running towards him. The 61 Binding Path 6 Stand Light Prison. 6 rays of light appeared out of nowhere and locked Hisoka's movements, forcing him to stop. 62 Boundaries. 100 Steps Longan. A rod of light then split into multiple rods to catch Hisoka, pinning him to the wall of the abandoned church. 0. 63 of the Tao of Binding, binding with a lock bar. The moment Hisoka was pinned to the wall, a thick snake-like chain wrapped around him, immobilizing him. Quality 3. Directly force Hisoka to end this uninteresting farce. The killing intent slowly dissipated. Yaiki put down his raised right hand. Close your eyes again and meditate. After a few minutes, Krollo, EPUB, and Flalev came to investigate because of the violent changes in the church. Hisoka hung on the wall, looking like a bundle of flowers. It caught the eyes of the three of them. Look at this never-before-seen ability. Krollo's eyes leaked with interest. Captain, do you want to help Hisoka? It's really surprising. Hisoka's strength ranking in the brigade has been able to rank in the top 5. But it was so miserable that it was hung on the wall and unable to move. Seeing such a miserable Hisoka, Lev subconsciously asked Krollo. Inquiry for flaking Lev. Krollo didn't pay attention to it, just put his eyes on Yaiki, who closed his eyes and meditated in the distance. Before the three came, there were only Yi-Yi and Hisoka. Who made Hisoka look like this? At a glance. After 3 hours, the restraint will automatically untie. A cold voice came out of Yi-Yi's mouth. Son. Chapter 125 Hisoka's runaway. Unexpectedly. After all, judging from his character, he would have the opportunity to fight the long-awaited Krollo. You shouldn't lose your mind so easily. But Yi-Yi didn't know, after finishing the battle with Xiaoji, Hisoka met a duel that made him vent his desire to fight. The desire to fight lingered in my heart. I don't know how long it took. This time, when he saw Yi-Yi, a rare ripe fruit, it was almost difficult for him to suppress it. And Yi-Yi's substantive killing intent was the last straw that overwhelmed his sanity. The collision of killing intent and killing intent further stimulated his fighting intent. Only then did he ignore the environment he was in at this time, and recklessly launched an attack on Yi-Yi. If it were in normal times, it is estimated that 150 would retire because of fear of Yi-Yi's killing intent. After all, although he likes to fight, he will not fight a mortal duel. It was for this reason that Yi didn't kill him. With only 3 restraints, Hisoka's actions were restrained. With Yi's current strength, if he really wanted to kill him, the battle would have ended the moment Hisoka released his killing intent. About this, Chrollo also noticed. Although he himself was not at the first scene of the battle. 1 or 2 can also be analyzed from the state of Hisoka and Yi. Hisoka had lost consciousness at this time, but he still held a poker for attacking in his hands. Obviously, the moment he launched his attack, the battle was over. Before he could react, Yi had already restrained him and even knocked Hisoka out of consciousness. As for Yi, it was judged based on his actions at this time and the changes in the surrounding dust. He didn't even stand up, and ended the battle with that inexplicable restraint ability. Such a terrifying and unknown ability made Chrollo's interest in Yi continue to rise. Pursuing the unknown is a common problem for people like him who like to read. He, Chrollo Rusulu, was naturally not surprised. It's just a different character than Hisoka, who directly expresses his inner thoughts. Chrollo is a spider. Likes to weave a good net, waiting for the prey to fall into his trap step by step until it is completely swallowed by him. Looking at Yaiki, who closed his eyes and meditated in the distance. The corner of Chrollo's mouth slowly evoked a smile. At this moment, compared to those auction items, he is more curious about what Yi has experienced in the past year. It can make him grow at such an exaggerated speed to a level that even he needs to look up to. That's right. At the moment when he realized that Hisoka was easily solved by Yi, Chrollo has already analyzed the fact that Yi's current strength far exceeds his own. But this is not something that is difficult for Chrollo to accept. As a capable person, Chrollo's thoughts do not penetrate. All he relied on was to perfectly digest and absorb the various abilities he had stolen. Used in conjunction with other abilities. It can be said that his fighting style itself is different from that of Yoichi. So Chrollo didn't care about that. Some thoughts have been used in place, and even if it is an enemy that is dozens or hundreds of times stronger than him, Chrollo has the confidence to solve it. I'm a little curious, what is the power that Yoichi uses? As the head of the spider, when he saw such a practical and rare ability, the idea of greed arises spontaneously. It's a pity that Yi is already his own temporary, at this time, and he can't start. I'm really curious to be able to see Yi in full strength one day. Thinking of it, Chrollo turned and left. Now that the cause of the church shaking has been determined, Yi has no plans to kill Hisoka. There is no need to stay here any longer. Chrollo's departure also took Kube and Flake Lev away. The interior of the abandoned church has once again restored the tranquility it should have. Only the occasional sound of breathing rang out in this tranquility. The other side. Yi didn't know that Xiaoji and Chiji Rexuo, who had separated from him yesterday, have now set their sights on the Phantom Brigade team that went out to find the trace of Owl. Maggie and Finks, the 2 of them were casually wandering the streets. Stop and go. Finally stopped in a shopping mall and waited leisurely under the gazebo. Before leaving the base, the 2 knew that their information had been published on the internet by the gang. The 2 of them walked down the street so swaggeringly, in order to attract those in the know who might know the information about the owl or the chain hand. Although not sure about the gains. But compared to doing nothing, this method at least has a chance of catching some gluttonous fish. Thinking of this, Maggie raised her hand and brushed the hair around her ear. In a slightly invisible way, he probed around. 10 minutes later. A pair of young men and women sat behind them. It was as if they were discussing plans to have fun next. It's just a small camera, but it sneaks out from between the 2 of them. Kacha tilde. Accompanied by the inaudible sound of the camera, the photo of the 2 of them was transmitted to Leo Lee's mobile phone. Doesn't matter. Just leak the information arbitrarily like this. He raised his glass and took a sip of ice water. Finks asked indifferently. The actions of this pair of young men and women were queried by the two from the very beginning. If it weren't for the purpose of catching the big fish behind them, the two of them would have been blown away by him. No matter, the real big fish hasn't appeared yet, just keep waiting. Maggie didn't choose to do it. The real behind-the-scenes messenger has not yet appeared, and only 2 bait insects to collect information are not enough for 2 people to shoot. 10 minutes later. The eyes of the two exchanged for a moment. Then he moved away as if nothing had happened. As if nothing ever happened. Is it coming? Well, here it is. Keep waiting. Or. Wait, leaving in 10 minutes. I see. Xiaoji and Chi, who had just arrived at the scene, did not know that the information of the 3 had been exposed the moment they arrived. It can be said that with the 3 people who have only practiced the 4 major elements, it is very rare to be able to achieve the current situation. From the beginning, they found the wrong opponent. Chapter 126 _ 10 minutes later. Maggie and Finks got up and left, like a couple coming home. Go far away. Xiaoji and Chi-Chi Rexuo, who were hiding in the 2nd floor, looked at each other and chased after them. The breath on his body has been completely hidden for some time. But they didn't mean that they had stepped into the trap woven by spiders at this moment. At the same time, the abandoned church hall where Yi Yi was located. The members of the brigade who went out to find someone began to return to the base. At the same time, a man who was not humanoid, Shouty, carried his trouser legs all the way back. Owl. The task was handed in by Yi Yi only yesterday, and was caught by the brigade again today. And the members of the brigade who went out and returned, saw the appearance of Hisoka being nailed to the wall, and they all showed their expressions of watching the play. No, shocked. Wow, ha ha ha. Hisoka, have you been attacked? Why do you look like this? When Wojin returned to the base, he couldn't stop laughing at the bound appearance of Hisoka. At the meeting place, he had been annoyed by Hisoka being late for 14 years. But the regulations prohibiting infighting among the members forced him to have no way to relieve the fire. The appearance of Hisoka now finally gave him a good sigh of relief. Cut, green apples are growing too fast to enjoy. Hisoka's consciousness had already recovered within 2 hours. At the same time, he is also curious about his current appearance. After several attempts, he has only broken 2 restraints now, and before the last restraint was broken, the members of the brigade came back one after another. This embarrassment has also been seen. Of course, Hisoka didn't mind being seen like this. It's just that Yi Yi grew up too fast and couldn't enjoy the battle well. Well, according to Yi Yi, this bondage only exists for 3 hours. When Yi Yi opened his mouth, Fellev was also present. So know the specific time when the bondage is released. 3 hours. What an amazing ability, it's the first time I've seen it. The knight came to Hisoka's side and looked at his ability to restrain him. Gradually, more and more members of the brigade came over and looked at Hisoka's abilities. Yukexen suburbs. Near a building group not far from the abandoned church. How is it, Chi Yanjin? Look at the 2 phantom troop members in sight. Xiaoji, who was hiding in the building, was a little nervous at this time. For fear that he would leak a breath of air and be noticed by the 2 people in the distance. I don't know whether this is an appointment or lure us into a trap. What do you think is the situation? Hiding in another building, Qixin Xuanwei now became more and more dangerous. There was even a desire to retreat in his heart. Before that, he wanted to know what Xiaoji was thinking. Luring us. They must have found out. Here Chimuji. Xiaoji's face gradually got cold sweat. He could never imagine how he was exposed. It's all possible, but at least our location hasn't been discovered yet, and even if they want to lure us, they don't know where we are now. We can only find a way to lead us out, so many flaws were deliberately leaked. Chi Argon is brilliant in Xiaoji. He was nurtured with the goal of being a killer since he was a child, and he was exposed to a lot of knowledge of tracking and being tracked. Under the guidance of this knowledge, he will not lose his mind at this moment. As long as you continue to maintain the status quo, whether it is to continue to track, or choose to flee, he was sure to keep going. It's just Xiaoji, don't worry about kixing. After thinking about it, he added another sentence. We will continue to observe in secret and wait for their next move. It's just that Ang Jiyu sighed in a low voice when he heard the phone ringing among the two members of the brigade outside. This moment, even he was a little nervous. Xiaoji, hang up first and observe them carefully. If there is any unnatural feeling in their expressions and actions, remember to run away immediately, as soon as you hear my phone ringing. Pity. The strange screen. Ang Jiyu waved his happiness and found the two members of the brigade outside, and instantly changed the direction of his gaze. Exposed. As soon as the thought in his mind came out, his body subconsciously turned around and prepared to escape. But just as he turned around, a short man wearing a mask appeared behind him. Look around in a circle from left to right, and the thoughts under your feet condense. Quickly ran around the house, trying to escape. It's a pity that this time he met the top 3 flying tanks in the brigade. Just a flash. Phaeton's figure had already appeared behind him. One grabbed the neck, making the others completely unable to move. Cut, if it wasn't for the information, you'd be dead by now. The tone of Chief Phaeton, who was not moving, was full of disdain. He just learned the garbage of the 4 majors, and even followed the phantom troop, which made him want to laugh in his heart. Yo tilde Phaeton, why are you here? Xiaoji hiding in another building. Also received the same treatment. Maggie and Pike Norda, who appeared out of nowhere, surrounded him. Completely cut off the pace of escape. Inside the abandoned church. With a flash of flickering, the rope holding Hisoka suddenly shattered. Hisoka's body also fell from the posture fixed to the wall toward the ground. But it was nothing to him. He rolled over in the air and stood firmly on the ground. Then he started to move his body. The other members, after seeing this ability disappear on time, exclaimed again. Yi frowned slightly, feeling that he had forgotten something important. Tilde. Just at this moment, a footstep sounded from outside the door, interrupting Yi's thoughts. Crunch. The wooden door is opened from the outside. The last few members returned with their own gains. Yi, Hisoka, Xiaodi, Wojin, Nobunaga and others. Immediately cast his eyes. Looking at the 2 people who were caught, Yi finally remembered what he had forgotten. Xiaoji and Kijijiao were urged by aunts. Even eating the blood vine will not change the fate of being caught. Chapter 127 Abandoned church for many years. At this moment, it is particularly lively because of the spiders. In particular, Xiaoji and Kiju Dumpling said that Mu Chaochu added more fire to this excitement. 2 confused faces. After looking around, I found quite a few familiar faces. Yi, Hisoka, and the girl who wrestled their arms the day before. Although I don't know why these 3 are here. But Yi and Hisoka could help him and Xiaoji escape. Pretending not to know is the best thing to do at the moment. It's a pity that not everyone has a mind as sharp as his. Xiaoji, who is under the control of Pike Norda. When I saw these familiar faces, I subconsciously made a surprised sound. Surprised that they are here. Hisoka joins the Phantom Troop, which is surprising but not surprising. He could not have imagined that Yi would be here alone. An unacceptable thought suddenly popped into his mind. Yi is also a member of the Phantom Troop. Once this idea popped up, it was out of control. Yeah, Ting Yungu teacher and Chi Pei fell. Yi is a person from the dark world. If it is him, it is indeed possible to join the Phantom Troop. Anger and remorse completely filled his brain. At this moment, he was even disgusted by the fact that he ate the blood vine that Yi brought. The anger in his heart made him forget his current situation. Asshole. In the direction of Yi, he subconsciously cursed out a voice. His move caught everyone's attention. Although he didn't know who this kid was scolding, he obviously knew someone in his group. Finks instantly appeared beside Xiaoji and pressed him to the ground. He is hot-tempered, but no matter who this kid knows. Now that they have come to their territory, they dare to be so arrogant. Chi oxime vinegar malarial words chimney obediently judging d male close HoloLens bracket Shuan cried out in worry. He can only do so much. The moment Xiaoji was pressed to the ground, Pike Norda, who was beside him, also took action. When the left hand grabbed Qi Jinai, a pistol appeared on the right hand at some point, and it was pressing against the back of his head at this moment. As long as he is moved, the next moment will break his brain. What, have you met someone you know? Nobunaga, who was looking at him from a distance, looked at Xiaoji curiously. Judging from the appearance of this rectum, there is a high probability that he is also a person with the ability to strengthen the system. Xiaoji didn't answer. Just staring in the direction of Yi Yi. The ordinary Chiguo Zongnuo Weishuan wanted to explain, but the pistol behind him was a bit closer, making him unable to open his mouth. At the critical moment, the gun against the mouth of the Chihena fan. The two of them should have seen Yi Yi. According to the information I just found, they are similar to Yi Yi's junior brother, and they only ate the blood vine replica that Yi Yi brought yesterday. The purpose of their tracking of Maggie and Finks is for a high bounty, and they don't know the information about the chain hand. Take control of the stunted time. Her left hand was also placed on Chuna Kushi to get more information. And Chi Kushao blew the blame, and the information about Yi Yi automatically appeared in Tang Huo's mind. This gave Pike Norda an opportunity to explore his memory. Cut. Is it Yi Yi? I was really happy for nothing. I heard that the two were related to Yi Yi. All the members turned their eyes away boringly. Their targets were only the owls who took away the auction items and the chain hands who secretly attacked. Yi Yi is now equivalent to a collaborator of the brigade. If the two little ghosts and Yi Yi turned their faces for the sake of money, it would not be worth it. Hey Yi Yi, how did you teach these two little bastards? It's too brainless to ignore life for the mere billions of nuns. The knight came directly to Yi Yi, patted his shoulder and laughed. For Xiaoji and Chi-Chi now ran, the mechanical sedan is stretched. It's just about money and not life. Ma tilde. After all, for two little devils, billions of ringworms should be quite a lot. Maybe they just want to buy a toy. Nobunaga beside him, although he did not laugh as exaggeratedly as the knight, but the constant shrugging of his shoulders also showed his mood at this time. For people like Phantom Troop and Yi Yi, money is the most worthless thing. As long as they want, they can get tens of billions of nuns at any time. Listen to the laughter beside you. Yi Yi didn't care. Xiaoji and Qi Xian retreated from Yan Xian's laziness and did not cause any loss to him. Gift the Bloodvine replica, just because the 24-hour time limit is approaching. Instead of wasting it, I don't know how to maximize it. And you can handle these two by yourself, don't worry about me. To be honest, the performance of the pair at night was a little disappointing. He clearly knew that he was tracking two enemies whose strength far surpassed him, but he only cared about the front and the back. Now this situation appears, all because of the recklessness of the two. If it was Yi Yi, I wouldn't show up at all until I collected detailed information. Che, your reaction is so boring. Several people laughed for a long time, just to see Yi Yi's performance. As a result, such a sentence came lightly, which made their Deli's interest disappear instantly. The next moment, the interest that had just dissipated was instantly rekindled. I remember that this kid beat Xiaodi when he was wrestling with Xiaodi the day before yesterday. Faden glanced at Xiaoji, who had an angry face. Lightly dropped such a sentence. He walked in the direction of the stand. So much time wasted without any news of the chain hand. If you don't have some fun, this trip is a waste of time. Wrench your wrist. Hey. Kid, come and wrench your wrist with me. Nobunaga in the distance stroked his beard. He turned aside Wojin, who was beside him, and looked at Xiaojigu, who was controlled by Finks. A smile emerged from his face. Since I can't play Wojin, it seems good to find a kid to play with. Anyway, let them do whatever they want on the night, it's not too much to play arm wrestling tilde. Chapter 128 _ Clap tilde clap tilde clap tilde. The sun was setting, and the afterglow shone on the walls of the abandoned church. A few faint beams of light passed through the glass and fell into the church. Two figures stood on the left and right of a table. Pa tilde sounded continuously. It came from here. Crack tilde. The clenched right hand was smashed heavily on the table again. Blood slowly flowed out from the back of the hand. Once, 10 times, 100 times. Forgotten. Xiaoji has forgotten how many times he lost arm wrestling. All I know is that my right hand is constantly raised, forced, and smashed onto the table. Pain. His right hand has already lost consciousness, and he can still lift it at this moment, relying on his own perseverance. No matter how many times he lost, he didn't want to just admit defeat. The firmness in his eyes has never changed since the beginning. Perhaps it was the clear eyes that made Nobunaga wrestle with him again and again. The arm wrestling game has been won once, twice, or even 10 times or 20 times. There is a sense of achievement in winning. But it's late in the game. By the time you have won 30, 40, or 50 times, victory seems to have become inevitable. The game is lost interest. But the unyielding will in Xiaoji's eyes prompted Nobunaga to continue the game. At this moment, the battle between the two has risen from arm wrestling to a competition of wills. If you don't continue to play arm wrestling, you will lose yourself. In this competition of wills, Nobunaga chose to persevere. The people in the brigade in the distance yawned as they watched this scene. It's acceptable to watch it for a while, but after a long time, even they will feel bored. The knight and Maggie discussed for a moment. Seems to be arguing about something. In the end, even the method of throwing silver coins was used to resolve the contradiction. After a while. Hey tilde yi, what are you going to eat? Maggie and I are going to buy food. The knight appeared beside Yi with a proud face, and it was obvious that he had won the silver coin toss just now. Don't worry about me, I'll deal with it myself. Slowly opening his eyes, he got up and moved his body. For eating, Yi-Yi's needs are not high, as long as they can replenish their physical strength, they are acceptable. Hearing Yi-Yi's answer, the knight didn't hesitate at all. Feel embarrassed. In a group like the Phantom Troop, there are always a few misfits. After so many years together, he has long been accustomed to such an attitude. It's just one more night, and it doesn't affect his mood at all. At this moment, the knight even has leisure to continue chatting with Yi. Really? Then we'll go buy our own food, don't be hungry then. Unfortunately. He's not finished yet. Knight's cell phone rang. Ignoring the knight next to him, Yi took out his phone from his trouser pocket. Open black lens bracket Boss Arthur close black lens bracket. Number 1, there is an urgent task that needs you to take over. Arthur's voice came from the phone. Yi-Yi's brows furrowed slightly in his commanding tone of command. Is it because he gave too much of his good face that Arthur mistakenly thought that he was just an ordinary killer under him? The kind that can be dispatched at any time. Yi didn't care about the entrustment made 2 days ago. But this time the tone was still the same, and Yi was not in his eyes. The 10 old men have invited major well-known killers to deal with the gang of thieves who sabotaged this auction. Arthur didn't know what Yi was thinking. Continue to tell the content of the task. It's a pity that he didn't know that Yi was at the spider's stronghold at the moment. The moment the task content came out from the phone, the eyes of all the spiders subconsciously looked towards Yi. And Crollo, who disappeared for a long time. His figure appeared from nowhere. Going straight to Yi-Yi's side, he listened to the request from Arthur's mouth openly. Tomorrow night there will be a rerun of the underground auction at the Cemetery building, and members of the Phantom Troupe may show up again. 10 old men hide and entrust major well-known killers to deal with these members of the Phantom Troupe. Number 1. Your name is also on the invited list. I hope you can take this commission, please. For a long time. Just when Arthur thought Yi was going to refuse, a cold voice finally reached his ears through the phone. I see, I'll be at the Cemetery building on time tomorrow afternoon. My heart that had been nervous for a long time was finally relieved. Yes, yes, in this way, number 8 will also be entrusted with supporting you. If you have any needs, you can apply to the Ukexan branch, and they will meet your requirements to the greatest extent possible. This time, I will trouble you. Calm down. Arthur also seemed to realize that his previous tone was wrong. Started to use some irrelevant conditions to try to pull back Yi's goodwill towards him. For number 1, a killer who is valued by the above. Arthur had to please. Drop tilde. The phone is hung up. Yi looked at Krollo beside him. He seemed to be asking why he was asked to take over this commission. At present, the Krollo commission in hand has not been completed, and he has no idea of taking other tasks. Therefore, I am ready to reject the 10 old man's entrustment this time. But just as he was about to refuse, Krollo's mouth kept changing. Take this assignment. Being proficient in spoken language made him see what Krollo wanted to convey. It was precisely because of Krollo's move that Yi took over the commission. Looking at Yi's eyes, Krollo knew that he needed to give a satisfactory answer. In response, Krollo showed an apologetic smile. At the same time, the thief's extreme intention is recondensed in the hand. Wow. The pages keep turning. On this page is a photo of a female capable person and information about her abilities. Marcus. Age, 51. Persons with the ability to manifest kinship. Abilities. Marcus's cosmetic bag. Ability status. Not dead. Ability introduction. Realize a palm-sized cosmetic bag, and you will find that this cosmetic bag can never be filled. Pink cosmetic bags appear out of nowhere. Reached out to the makeup bag. Another wooden box was taken out of it. This is an apology for the move just now. Chapter 129 _ Krollo took out a beautiful wooden box from her pink cosmetic bag. Handed it to the knight. This is the apology just now. A gentle voice and a sincere apology attitude are enough to make most people forgive his actions just now. Unfortunately, Yi was not among the majority of them. He took over the beautiful wooden box and opened it directly in front of Krollo. The familiar dark waves spread outward. Open black lens bracket dark sonata close black lens bracket. No, it's just one of the movements . Take the wooden box in your hand. His eyes were still staring at Krollo who was in front of him. Just one movement of dark sonata is not enough to convince, Yike. This can only be considered compensation. Wanting Yi to help the Phantom Troupe in the 10 old man's commission requires more price. As for what the cost is. Krollo's heart naturally understood. Helplessly sighed. Yi, the type that doesn't suffer, is the type that Krollo dislikes the most, but is also the type that is best at dealing with. I don't like it, because there is not enough interest and will not be shot. Good at it, as long as you give enough benefits or conditions, you can persuade. 10 old men's commissions are included in my commission. The smile is still there, and he is not at a loss at this moment. Through the information on Yi's side, he learned the next action plan of the gang. And the approximate future action plan of the Chain Hand. Chain Hand is a member of the gangster, which has been confirmed. Since he is a member of the gang, there is a high probability that the 10 old men will not let go of his high-level combat power and avoid wasting resources. That is, tomorrow night's auction at the Cemetery building. There is a high probability that the Chain Hand who once attacked Wojin will appear. An unexpected call. Krollo learned a lot of information in an instant. 1. The auction will resume tomorrow afternoon. 2. At the same time as the auction, the 10 old men hired a large number of killers to solve the brigade. 3. There is a high probability that the chain hand will appear in the auction venue. It can be said that entrusting Yi to stay by his side is far beyond the value of the dark sonata in his heart. Hearing Krollo saying the answer he wanted, Yi did not continue to pursue his unauthorized claims. Get up, ignoring Xiaoji and Qian in the distance. Go outside the church. Although the content of this commission has become undercover, Yi still has to do it well. The auction will take place tomorrow night. Before that, he needs to find his partner. Inside the abandoned church, Krollo looked at Yi's gradually receding figure, and the soft smile on his face gradually disappeared. Take out your phone. Under the watchful eyes of all the members, they made a call. Since the 10 old men have the consciousness to attack the brigade, they should also be prepared to die. Is it an ill fan? It's me Krollo, commission, I will send you the content next, and the reward will make you satisfied. Krollo and Ilmi know each other. And the time to know each other is not short. Judging from the conversation between Ilmi and Hisoka, Krollo and Ilmi have a pretty good friendship. It's just that Ilmi and Hisoka have a better friendship than Krollo. This is also the reason why Ilmi easily turned into Hiso when Hisoka went to make a decision with the head of the regiment. Hang up. The corners of the mouth rose again. A web woven by spiders began to spread. Turning to look at Maggie. Then, before tomorrow's auction, please ask our 2 guests not to leave for now, please, Maggie. Look at Yi's face. He won't kill these 2 little devils, but he also won't let them leave today. When the event was over, it was time for the 2 to leave. Understood, Captain. Maggie stretched out a needle with a thread, and quickly tied the 2 little ones together. By the way, save Xiaoji from the arm wrestling game. The thread will not be untied until tomorrow night falls. Looking at the 2 people who were constantly struggling in front of them, a cold voice came from Maggie's mouth. She is not a soft girl like Xiaoji. Cold is her main style. With 2 hand knives down, Xiaoji and Qiangu Zixiu were in disaster. Flowers. Although the chanting thread will not be released until tomorrow night, judging from the level of noise between the 2, if they are not allowed to fall asleep, they will not have a good night's sleep to sleep. Don't go too hard all of a sudden, it's hard to say at Yi. Watching Maggie's action. The knight standing aside kindly reminded her. Just hearing the words of the knight, Machi didn't respond, and Wo Jin, who was beside him, laughed. Yi said, let's solve it ourselves, even if we kill them, we won't say anything, right? Wo Jin from the enhancement department slapped the knight on the shoulder a little carelessly. I didn't notice the pain on the face of the knight when he was slapped. Che, even though Yi said this, does he really let you kill them? Now he has a commission with the head of the regiment. If something happens to these 2 little devils, it will probably affect our next actions. Dismantle each other. Seems to be fun between Nobunaga and Wojin. I saw Nobunaga laughing wildly, full of ridicule at Wojin's appearance that he couldn't see the situation clearly. There is absolutely no way that Wojin would be so sad when he died in the original book. In the distance, Wojin's face was flushed. He didn't think of what Nobunaga said at all, he just said something subconsciously. But at this time, he could not refute it. Just in time to see Nobunaga leaning against the table where he and Xiaoji were wrestling their wrists. Eyes lit up. Bastard Nobunaga, you have confidence in bullying the kid, right? Let's see what a real arm wrestler is. No chance for Nobunaga to refute. Jump straight down from the stand. With a height of nearly 3 meters, while bringing him a wide frame, his weight is also soaring. Boom tilde. The entire abandoned church seemed to be shaking. Let me see how powerful you are with your arm that won the arm wrestling all afternoon. He grabbed Nobunaga's right hand. Tossed to the table. Wait. Nobunaga couldn't break free from Wojin's shackles, and was forced to start an arm wrestling match. The other members of the brigade laughed at Wo Jin bullying Nobunaga. Sun. Chapter 130 Vertical Sun. There are still 3 hours until the auction starts. Yi Yi, who found number 8, did not wander around, but went directly to the Cemetery building in the message. Although this time, because of Crollo, the nature of his work has changed. But the necessary information still needs to be collected. Hey tilde number 1, it's alright to arrive at 1700 in the afternoon as notified in the message, and there is still an hour left. I haven't seen each other for 2 days, and number 8 forgot their identities again. It regained the way it had escaped. Wandering around, ignoring the people on the road who were attracted by her looks. For number 8's inquiry, Yi Yi chose to remain silent. Pay attention to her, more nonsense will come out of her mouth. More times, Yi Yi also gained experience. By the way, isn't the owl with the auction item captured again? The auction items from the 10 old men and the others will continue to be held in this auction. It is impossible to recollect new auction items for auction in just 2 days. Number 8 was not discouraged by Yi Yi ignoring him. On the contrary, it is more vigorous. She was very interested in the auction that the 10 old men relaunched. I planned to participate in today's auction last year, but unfortunately, the appearance of the Phantom Troupe this year disrupted my plan, otherwise I would already be holding my favorite auction item and enjoying afternoon tea at home leisurely. Quote. Hold hands behind head. I felt extremely saddened by the appearance of the Phantom Troupe. After hearing number 8 talk for a long time, he finally talked about a serious matter. Knight glanced at it. Open to explain. Our task is not only to solve the Phantom Troupe and recover the auction items, but also the requirements within the task. It's just that the 10 old men didn't say it clearly. The address and time of the auction will be chosen to be held at the location where it was previously attacked. Not only to provoke the Phantom Brigade, but more because the gang wants to show their strength. In their opinion, so many killers were invited to come. An A-level Phantom Brigade is not a trivial matter. The stolen auction items can also be retrieved naturally. Not only shows his risk to the outside world, but also can condense the minds of his subordinates that have begun to change. Among the 10 old men, none of them are fuel-efficient lamps. Unfortunately, being in the top all the year round makes them forget what revenge is. Since you 10 old men dare to issue a request to find someone to attack our Phantom Troupe, then don't blame us for entrusting killers to deal with you as well. You know, people are different. The difference between ordinary people and capable people is even more insurmountable. A few gang bosses who have no combat power, trying to kill the spider that has been active for many years, the Phantom Brigade, is really delusional. The area near the Cemetery building. Gangs have begun to guard, vigilant for any suspicious appearance. Pass the authorization certificate. Some underworld personnel specially drove the Night 1 and 8 to the door of the Cemetery building. Here, there is already a gangster brother waiting for the arrival of the 2 in advance. The 2 did not go directly to the room where the killers gathered. Start walking around the building. At the same time, all kinds of information are recorded in the brain, just in case. Behind the 2, the gangster dutifully introduced various information about the building. Half an hour. All kinds of information about the building have been recorded in their minds. Turn to the assembly room. Crunch tilde. With the sound of the door opening, Yi Yi and number 8 entered the room. Before the 2 of them, several killers had already assembled here in advance, and among them were 2 old rivals that Yi Yi was familiar with. Yo tilde Yi Yi, long time no see. Shiba beat the enemy and Juno beat the enemy. The moment he saw Yi Yi, the old man's eyes changed and became much sharper. Shiba slowly closed his eyes. The 2 beating enemies entered the room and sat quietly beside them. Quietly looked at every killer who entered the room. Judge their strength. Unfortunately, nearly 10 killers came in. Most of them are trash, only 2 people let them take a little more look. Of course, it's just one more look. Although it is slightly stronger than other wastes, its essence is still waste. Regarding the evaluation of the two of them, the killers did not know. All I know is that this old man, who has been quiet since he came in, seems to know the new killer. I've given you my business card for a month, but you haven't come to Kukulu Mountain. It really makes the old man wait for a while. A terrifying killing intent erupted from Juno's body, filling Yi Yi. The terrifying killing intent was mixed with strong evil thoughts. The atmosphere in the room instantly became weird and gloomy. The surrounding killers were shrouded in this terrifying killing intent. Breathing has become a luxury action. I'm so busy with work that I don't have time. Ignoring Junuo's killing intent, he took number 8 toward the direction of beating the two of them. But after completing this commission, I should be free to go to Kukulu Mountain. Find 2 benches and sit directly beside them. Me and Nitro, but we almost died, it's good to be alive. Casually talking about what happened recently. But the expression on his face was still indifferent and cold. The thrill of almost dying is completely invisible, making people think he's joking. Juno and Shiba knew that this was not a joke. With his current strength, there is no need to say such a joke to gain a sense of existence. Nitro, didn't expect you to be on a mission with him. Killing thoughts slowly retracted. Juno's eyes flickered slightly, thinking about something in his heart. Yi Yi grew up too fast, somewhat beyond his expectations. The killers, who were shrouded in the thought of killing and unable to breathe, finally regained control over their bodies. Panting frantically. His eyes were full of fear for Juno. They couldn't imagine how many people had been killed to form such a terrifying killing intent. At the same time of fear, he is full of respect for Juno. The strong are respected wherever they are. Chapter 131 Semedali Building. The tranquil atmosphere in the killer assembly room. Under the stimulation of Jia Nuo's killing thoughts, it seemed more peaceful. There were still 2 killers who had high self-esteem, but now they are also quietly waiting for the arrival of the principal. Number 8, look left and right beside Yi Yi. Not at all disturbed by the atmosphere. Time passed little by little. Agreed 17 o'clock, there are still the last 5 minutes. Crunch tilde. The door to the room was pushed open again, and a familiar figure entered from outside. Kurapika. In the last 5 minutes before the time runs out, successfully reach the killer assembly point. Look around. Next moment. Nianqi instantly enveloped the whole body, and the attacking posture was subconsciously posed. In his sight, Yi Yi's figure was sitting beside the far wall. The memories of Nasla's mansion and the images from the previous 2 days when they were chasing the brigade came to mind again. Although I don't know what the relationship between Yi Yi and the Phantom Troop is, from the appearance of playing cards a few days ago, it is obviously not too bad. Eyes with contact lenses seem to have changed a bit. Hands clenched tightly. He never imagined that the figure of this man 14 would appear here. Junior, don't reveal the killing intent so easily, it's too ugly. An ordinary killer who was intimidated by Juno's killing intent. Under Kurapika's killing intent, he looked somewhere with a conditioned reflex. Seeing that the old man had no other reaction, he was relieved. By the way, a warning to Kurapika, who was indiscriminately killing intent. He was afraid that Kurapika didn't understand current affairs, angered the terrifying old man, and implicated himself. Under the intervention of the killer, Kurapika gradually regained his senses. Sorry. Glancing at Yi Yi, he found a place to stand. Quietly closed his eyes and meditated. He knew that this was not the time to fight Yi Yi. He alone knew the information Yi Yi met with the Phantom Troop, and it was unclear whether anyone believed it. But it will definitely startle the snake. Although he didn't want to admit it, Kurapika knew that there was still a big gap between his own strength and that of Yi Yi. Number 8 saw Kurapika's hostility to Yi Yi. The corners of his mouth rose slightly. As if planning something. After a few minutes, Yi Yi's old acquaintance, Bianji, pushed in the door. Looking at the many killers in the room, there was a look of satisfaction in his eyes. The 10-old man's request to go out was too hasty. It was beyond his expectation that so many killers could arrive in this short day. Bianji's appearance was no different from what Yaiki remembered. The only thing to say is that there is a difference. It is estimated that it is even more ugly. He was a short, fat middle-aged man with bald hair. It is hard to imagine that he once had the courage to annex the Nasla family, although the annexation failed in the end, but this is enough to show his ability. From now on, I will officially convey the request of the 10 old men. The chunky figure stood tall and straight. Looking around in a circle from left to right, an aura of a superior emanated. The content of the entrustment is to destroy the phantom troop. The details and actions are up to you to decide. If there is any need for the next action, it can be said. Several of the killers knew that they had asked the gang in advance for the map of the building, as well as the surrounding maps. Since we want to cooperate with each other, let's set a password. There's a killer with a seemingly good offer. What he was met with was the counterattack of several other killers. Cooperation. I don't know each other. The basis for cooperation is there. Killing is not a game of pretending to be a family drink. I have to act alone. In the hearts of beating enemies, they are rated as a slightly stronger duo of trash. There is also a demand for independent action. It doesn't matter, I already have a partner, so I don't need to cooperate with you. Yi Yi's attitude was casual. Anyway, his identity is undercover, whether he cooperates or not is the same. The number 8 next to him is an ordinary person who doesn't understand anything. It's not bad that he can survive. Even Zaiba and Jianuo had a look on their faces that kept outsiders away. How you want to play is up to you, but don't think about ordering us, we'll do things our way. Say it. Junuo took out a few cards that Yi Yi was familiar with from his pocket and handed them to everyone. This is the contact information for us to beat the enemy's family. If you need it, you can contact us, and for the sake of your peers, you can get a 30% discount. Cards are passed one by one. It can be said that Junuo's behavior is somewhat humiliating. But no one dared to refuse. After experiencing Juno's terrifying killing intent, they all kept aloof from the old man Juno. Seeing that most people choose to fight alone, this group that wants to seek cooperation has set its sights on Kurapika. Sorry, everyone who is doing it doesn't know each other, and rash cooperation may affect your own performance. I still think it's time to act separately. End of brief discussion. Except for the few people who propose to cooperate. All the other killers intend to work their own way. Seeing that everyone's discussion was over, Bianji walked out. His task is mainly to explain the delegated goals, and to manage these killers. The former has been completed. Forget the latter, Janji knows how much he weighs and how many tails he has, so rashly pointing at these killers may lead to the disaster of killing. He can't forget. A joking remark a few months ago, right? Nasla, who he hated, was packed his head and sent to his table. The horror of killers, he has seen it once. Behind Bianji, a group of killers walked out of the room and started their own actions. There is only 1 hour left before the auction starts. The other side. Nyan, who slipped out from under the bodyguard's nose, was walking on an overpass in a daze. She, who was eager to participate in the auction, finally embarked on the same fate as before. Behind her, a man in a suit smiled softly. Throwing away the photo in his hand, he walked in the direction of Nyan. None of the people the Spider Chief has taken a fancy to can escape his grasp. Nyan is no exception. Chapter 132 Half an hour later. Downstairs in the Cemetally building, a young man in a suit came with his female companion. The gangsters who guarded the gate passed after checking the invitation. Wow, it really came in like this. Nyan looked at him coming in so easily, and couldn't help but let out a happy voice. To Krollo, who was beside him, he sincerely thanked him. I really thank you this time, otherwise I really don't know what to do. Face thanks. A soft smile hung on his face. It creates a subconscious feeling of intimacy. Relax your guard against him. There, you're welcome. I should thank Ling Zun. Ling Zun took great care of me during his lifetime, and I'm really happy to be able to help you. Hearing his father, Nyan's face flashed an unnatural look. Thinking of the next auction, I regained my excitement. Krollo did not continue to speak on right Nasla. Turning slightly to the side, he pointed to the coffee shop beside him. It's still a while before the auction starts, why don't you have a cup of coffee and take a break? This proposal just hit Nyan's state at this time. In order to be able to escape from the bodyguards, she made a large purchase as a whole, which consumed a lot of physical strength. Then I want you to treat me. I sneaked out without my wallet. Looking at the cafe in the distance, Nyan was a little moved. Krollo smiled and nodded. Nyan's face suddenly turned rosy, and he hurried forward a few steps and past Krollo. Don't let him see his current state. Krollo noticed everything, but said nothing, silently following Nyan's pace. A princess who can only rely on her ability is not suitable for him. The only thing this princess can do is to contribute her own abilities. The prey must have the consciousness of the prey. The two entered the cafe. At this time, because of the auction, a lot of people came to the Semetali building. Now that the auction has not officially started, some people have chosen the same choice as Krollo. Came to the cafe to wait for the auction to start. The two circled around, but did not find a free seat. Nyan's mood was a little depressed, she was still wearing high heels under her feet, and the pain had been heard from time to time. As for Krollo, he looked at the gangsters around him coldly. If it weren't for maintaining the current character, these people would have died under his hands. Look around. Eyes suddenly narrowed slightly. As if seeing an acquaintance, a smile emerged from the corner of his mouth. Miss Nyan, I saw my colleagues. If you don't mind, I think I can sit with them for a while to rest. Several thoughts flashed in my mind. Finally into action. He lowered his head and spoke to Nyan, who was distracted beside him, his tone full of inquiries. But Krollo knew that Nyan would definitely agree. Her unbearable feet did not allow her to continue walking around at will. Krollo's words made Nyan a little excited. Ah, is this okay? I don't mind sharing a table with others, but will your colleague agree? Smile still. Krollo ignored Nyan's inquiry. Take her to the direction of his colleague. Far away. Yi took a glass of juice and took a sip for a long time. As the killer invited by the 10 old men, Yi has access to the entire building, so the coffee shop in the district is naturally no problem. It's just too boring to just execute a delegate that already sees the result. Then I came to the coffee shop to pass the time, waiting for what I should do. Across from him, number 8 was casually drinking some cocktails. It seems that from the very beginning, she knew that she was just thrown over by the boss, saying that she was assisting, but in such an occasion, what she can do is very limited. So here I am drinking cocktails. At this moment, a shadow suddenly blocked the light of the cafe. Let number 8 raise his head subconsciously. Two people, a man and a woman, came to the table next to him at some point. The man is well dressed, his expression is soft and amiable, and he looks like a good communicator. Number 8 did not know if it was because of the cocktail, his face suddenly became a little rosy. It was just Krollo, who was greeting Yi at this time. The measured body prevented him from seeing this scene. Yo tilde Yi, I'm sorry, there's really no vacancy here. Can I make a table with you? The expression is soft and natural. It gives the impression that he has known Yi for many years and is a good colleague. Behind Krollo, Nyan also greeted Yi with a smile. She had no idea what Yi had done. This is Mr. Nasla's daughter. Mr. Nasla has helped us a lot. You won't let her sit, will you? Krollo smiled and introduced the identity of the girl behind him. It seems to be threatened by Nasra's old love, but in fact, more is to reveal the information of the girl behind him to Yi. Hear the 3 words Nasra. Yi recalled the identity of this girl. Of course, Mr. Nasla once worked with me on a $10 billion business, and I will never forget his care for us. Since it's Mr. Nasla's daughter, please feel free to take your seat. You're welcome. Although his voice was still cold, his expression softened a lot. Seems that there is such a thing as true to Li Hao. Let 8, who was sitting across from him, open his eyes subconsciously. Fortunately, there was no cocktail in his mouth at this time, otherwise choking would be a small matter, and spouting would be a big deal. Nyan on the side was smiling. One is to finally sit down and rest for a while. The second is to receive admiration for his late father from 2 strangers one after another. Although my father is dead, he once left traces in this world. Even 2 strangers have never forgotten him. It gave Nyan a sense that his father was actually great. Sitting next to number 8, I felt that my whole body was about to be wrapped by this leather sofa. Nyan felt that his fatigue all disappeared at this moment. Not found at all. Yaiki and Krolo, who were sitting opposite, looked at each other for a moment. The eyes of the 2 became a little indifferent. Chapter 133_. In the cafe. Underworld personnel are randomly located in every corner. There is a high probability that they will not choose to leave before the auction starts. The oppressive atmosphere began to spread. The staff began to pray that they would not make mistakes, for fear of angering these horrible guys. The depressing atmosphere only disappeared when it spread to the corner of the cafe. Cheers tilde. 4 different drinks collided gently in the hands. Make a crisp sound. Ha tilde it's delicious tilde. Nyan put down the teacup in his hand and let out a heartfelt sigh. He didn't realize it at all. The 3 people beside him just took a sip of the drink in his hand and put it down. Yi and Krolo were purely habit. Number 8, although he drank a lot just now, but that was only when Yi was alone. Now there are 2 outsiders she doesn't know. The high cold character was picked up by her again. Wei Du, the eldest lady from the gang, seems to know nothing. Daily revealed all kinds of information about himself. I used to run hard. I have a dry mouth and this tea moistens my throat, it's really comfortable. Glancing at the teacup in his hand, Nyan began to complain. Krolo, on the other hand, turned into a puppet, catering to a few words from time to time. To avoid her feeling ignored and embarrassed. You run so hard tilde. Pushing the orange juice in his hand aside, he sighed softly. Seeing his appearance, Nyan gave more information. Yes, I used to find 2 bodyguards annoying, but now Kurapika has sent me to 6, and they are still staring at me, and I can hardly breathe. Yi is not interested in Nyan's dialogue. After all, her value is only for this moment. What's more, Yi might be more familiar with the Nasla family than she is. Krolo lowered his head and his eyes flickered slightly. Kurapika. A little curious about the name Nyan just said. As the head of the Phantom Troop, it is impossible for him to focus his energy on little things that have nothing to do with him. The Nasra family was just the family he had learned about a few hours ago. Boss of the Nasla family, right, the 2nd generation boss Nyan was in the position. But this short half hour of contact. He had already let him know that the girl in front of him could never be the boss in charge of a family, she was too tender. It's impossible to run such a huge gangster family who is not wary of anyone. Without the help of outsiders, she would have been swallowed together with her bones long ago. It's just that he has no idea who this master is. Now Nyan's sudden name seemed to give the answer. Kurapika, shouldn't you be in control of the Nasra family? Why would he send bodyguards to protect you? Is he trying to snatch the family business that Mr. Wright once worked hard for? Krolo's figure suddenly sat upright, and his gentle face changed. It seems to be fighting for Nyan. Nyan was a little flustered when he saw Krolo, whose face suddenly changed, but after hearing these questions, he realized that he was fighting for himself. The trust in Krollo rose spontaneously. Since her father writes death, it seems that there is really no one who cares about her like this. Kurapika only helped her to control the family due to the entrustment, and did not mean to her. But Krollo seemed to genuinely care about her. At this moment, Nyan seemed to feel the taste of love. He quickly opened his mouth to explain the relationship between Kurapika and himself. Kurapika is just a bodyguard that my father found for me before he died. After my father died, because he had the same interests and hobbies as me, he stayed to help me manage the family. Kurapika's information was easily captured by Krollo. The gang members secretly help manage the family, and have the same hobby. 3 messages seem to remind him of something. This seems to be related to the chain hand that the brigade has been looking for a long time. In my thoughts, I decided to start with the last piece of information. Really, I didn't expect Kurapika to be a collector of human bodies. With people with the same interests, Miss Nyan can get out of her injuries as soon as possible, which is really nice. He folded his hands together, as if he was glad that Nyan had such a companion. Yi turned his head silently. Do your best to ignore this picture. The image of Krollo in his heart collapsed at this moment, being thrown to the ground and crushed again and again. After a few minutes, Krollo and Nyan stopped talking. What Krollo wanted to know has been revealed by Nyan. Nyan, on the other hand, met a confidant who understood his heart. Thinking of this, she smiled sweetly. Hey Krollo, let me help you with divination. Don't look at me like this. I'm actually very good at divination. By the way, 2 colleagues of Krollo, I will also help you with divination. The voice falls. Number 8 sitting next to her, and Krollo opposite her were a little moved. Only Yi was not interested. Divination needs to provide birthday, and other information. How many people from Meteor Street know their birthday? After a while, 8 looked to the side in disappointment. Their Nyan is helping Krollo with divination. This made her both envious and a little disappointed. I am envious that Krollo can accept divination, but I am disappointed that he does not know his birthday. Yi knew the result early in the morning, ignoring the loss of number 8. Auction is about to start, work. Getting up and walking towards the outside world, number 8 silently followed. The 2 were left alone in the cafe. Hey number 1, by the way, who were those 2 people just now? Walked down the hall. Looking at the gangsters who were gradually increasing beside him, number 8 seemed to think of something. Those 2 guys just sat down after saying hello to you. I didn't realize what happened. For the 2 I just met. She always felt that there was a faint breath on the 2 of them. This feeling is similar to number 1. It is also very similar to the breath that appears from time to time. Don't ask about anything that has nothing to do with you. Unfortunately. A cold voice came from the front. Chapter 134 Luckily, the missing calendar was preserved. The tune of condolence was replaced by excitement. The messenger of death withers in the high-pitched music. The composer dragged the chains of the fiery I. Let the month have full hope. Go higher, meet the new moon. This will be the beginning of everything. If this is not possible, the months will gradually wither. The right of the month in a grander melody. Listen to that unforgettable note. The melody of blood will open the chapter of the new overture. Even so, your status is still noble. Abandon the calendar without a serial number. No one can take away your pride and dignity. Set off to go far. The 12-legged footsteps never stop. In the cafe. Krollo, who silently watched the divination. Your fortune-telling is very good, really accurate. If there is no blood vine, Wojin seems to have become the missing monthly calendar. Music. It was indeed his next plan. As for the credibility of this divination, Krollo dispelled his doubts. The auction is about to start. Let's go. He raised his head, a soft smile on his face again. Nyan's role was almost drained by him. There was no need for such a woman to waste time. He no longer intends to continue playing. 5 minutes later. Hand over the fainted girl to the gangster next to you. The figure disappeared unknowingly into the surrounding crowd. He came to a quiet corner and took the phone out of his arms. Drip tilde. With bursts of noise, the phone was connected. Captain tilde, can the operation begin? Wo Jindu is almost unable to hold back. The knight's voice complained a little. He said he had to deal with the chain hand who attacked him with his own hands. But more, or look forward to the next action. The smile rose slowly. Krolo's temperament gradually changed. In the last moment, he was still a gentle and elegant man. After removing the bandage on the head, it became a cold and ruthless emperor-like existence. The action begins, killing all the living people I see. The cold voice was full of desperation. He couldn't forget the divination he had just seen. Almost, just a little bit. Wojin almost died in the hands of the chain hand. This made him unacceptable. His anger needs to be borne by someone, and the original plan to kill all the underworld personnel has changed. Let Phaeton go and clean up the Nuthra family. Ignore the carnival coming from the other end of the phone. At this moment, there was only anger and fear in his heart. The phone hangs up. The head is slightly raised. His hands were raised slowly, like the opening gesture before the band's performance. Music. Be more intense then. The action of the spider begins. The other side of the building. The panic didn't know when it started to spread. Yi leaned against the wall and looked at the gangsters who started to get restless because of their panic. Quite boring. The layout of the building, the escape route, the number of killers, and other information were all handed over to Krolo during the brief contact at the cafe just now. It's to play an internal role. As long as there is nothing wrong with Krolo, he can keep paddling until the end of this incident. Look up. Yi's eyes seemed to pass through the wall and saw the man standing in front of the window waving his arms. Gunshots, explosions, wailing. A movement led by him spread leisurely throughout Ukexan. This time, not for condolences. It's revenge, to the gang, to the chain hands. ... There was a sound of footsteps in the distance, gradually approaching Yi. I'm back, number 1 . A cheerful voice came from a distance. No one knows what happened to her in the moment she was gone. But at the moment, the shape is more dynamic. An invisible breath permeated around her body. Natural awakening. Looking at the invisible breath, a word appeared in Yi's mind. As we all know, there are 2 ways to initiate mindfulness. 1. Natural awakening. 2. Forced awakening. It is impossible for someone to be capable in the Semetali building, and it seems boring to forcibly open the sperm hole for number 8. Flowers. Therefore, the only explanation is the time when the 8th left. Her body completed the natural awakening of mindfulness. This way of awakening is not as dangerous as forced awakening. Therefore, number 8 will return to Yi's side unharmed. Awakening. That's right. I just called specifically to ask them on the 13th, and they said this is the awakening of Nian. A smile filled his entire face. But the awakening process was subconsciously taken by her. Of course, even if she didn't say it, Yi didn't have the desire to ask. This ability is really amazing. It's like another layer of invisible clothes on the body. 0. Number 8, who was awakened, was next to Yi. Tell your feelings at the moment. I feel like I've gotten a lot stronger all at once. It's just that the increase brought by the awakening of mind power seems to make her a little swollen. For this kind of situation, Yi generally ignores it. After all, other people's affairs have nothing to do with him. But this time is different. The 11 killers who came here are all in control of Nian. Number 8 is now equivalent to his partner. If he just died like this, it seems that it is not suitable. If you don't want to die inexplicably, don't be too inflated. The icy voice made the cheering number 8 slammed. Now that she has awakened Nian, she naturally understands that the killers in the gathering room have the special ability of Nian. Compared to these killers who have been awakened for many years, number 8 thinks that his strength is no better than anyone present. The expansion brought about by the awakening thoughts disappeared without a trace after a few hits of Yi Yi. Really, just make me happy for a while, Tilda. She glanced at her and interrupted her knight. 8's tone was full of grievances. It's just that Yi Yi didn't care about number 8's grievance. He still leaned against the wall with his eyes closed. It seems that most of those who awakened naturally developed their own thoughts when they awakened. Yi Yi was a little curious. Has number 8 awakened to its own abilities? Sun. Chapter 135 Monitoring room of Sumedali building. A killer invited by the 10 old men looked at the screen on the monitor in front of him. Seems to have sensed something was wrong. Replayed over and over again. The speed of the knife is astonishingly fast. If it weren't for my eyesight, he would have escaped long ago. If he wanted to kill, the woman's neck would have been broken long ago. With their own discoveries, the killer started talking to himself. What an exciting opponent that made my blood boil. The exaggerated laughter could no longer be concealed. In the surprised eyes of the gangsters, the killer gradually disappeared. The trace of Krollo was exposed at this moment. The technicians in charge of observation and monitoring, after hearing the explanation, began to report the news to the personnel at 160 on each floor. Entrance to the auction. Shiba hung up the phone and looked at Junuo beside him. The target seems to have infiltrated the building. Do you want to shoot now? Although Zyba is the current head of the Haka family who beat the enemy, Nuo's many years of experience can always bring unexpected harvests. Don't worry, the 10 old men hired so many killers. Let them play with spiders first. Don't forget, spiders are never easy guys to deal with. Well, Tilda, although a few have died. But before that, it's better to let these noisy guys be quiet first. It will affect the mood. Juno finished answering Shiba's question. Still close your eyes. Yes, Dad. As soon as Zyba's voice fell, he clenched his fist with his left hand and slammed it towards the wall beside him. Boom, tilde tilde tilde. With a roar. The hard walls were cracked with dense ripples. With the help of the flesh, it was easily shattered. Moment. The crowd, which was as noisy as the market, subconsciously quieted down. Everyone turned their attention to the place where the figure came from. 2 figures appeared in their eyes. See the scene become quiet. Juno is satisfied. I simply introduced myself to this group of gangsters. Hello, everyone, my name is Juno Beatrice. All the people present are from the dark world, and many of them know the reputation of beating the enemy Haka family. What? They are the legendary killer family, the Haka family. The 10 old men have even found such a monster. Hello, Tilda, this is too exaggerated. A few thieves, is it necessary to use such a terrifying killer? Surprised voices came from the crowd. Obviously, they didn't think about the fact that the 10 old men would invite all the Haka clan to beat the enemy. After all, not everyone can afford the high appearance fee for beating the enemy family. After a brief astonishment, the gangsters became quiet again. Judging from the appearance of the two, there is a high probability that they have something to say. Although the people present were all gangsters, but few dared to go against the wishes of beating the enemy Haka family. Seeing the scene quiet down again, Juno opened his eyes slightly. The aura of the whole person became sharp, making people unable to look directly. I'll tell you the truth, there's an assassin sneaking in front of this building right now. Few of the killers hired by the 10 old men have survived. The scene was a little restless again. These gangsters could not have imagined that so many assassins died within a few minutes of the news of the assassins. Ignore the restlessness of the gang below. Juno's voice remained flat. For example, even if you all have weapons, in 7 seconds, I can kill you all in just 7 seconds. The assassin who sneaked in also possesses such strength. Finished. His eyes squinted slightly to the left. I'm not mistaken, Brother Yi. In the direction he is looking. Two figures were hidden in the shadows of the walls. The hiding angle is excellent, if not for the partner beside him leaking his breath. Neither Juno nor Shiba could find it. What? There are still people there. Hearing Juno's words, everyone subconsciously looked in the direction Yi leaned against. As predicted. There were really two figures there quietly watching the performance below. It's hard for everyone to imagine how long he stayed in that position. But, damn it, if he came to assassinate, we would have. Is this the strength of a top killer? It's really terrifying. Hidden ability for Yoichi. Almost everyone was surprised and scared. Che, let me watch the play quietly, isn't that good? See yourself exposed. Anyway, you can't solve Crollo, so just pretend you didn't see me, how about that? Yi stepped out of the shadows, and his icy expression was exposed to everyone's sight. Just for Yi's statement, Junuo shook his head helplessly. No, since we have received a request from the 10 old men, then we naturally have to complete it seriously, so as not to lose the face of beating the enemy Haka. It's you who took the request, instead of looking for Crollo, you took a little girl around. Old 10 will cry when he sees the killer he hired so leisurely. Juno talks a lot. It seems to be the most talkative one among the Haka who beat the enemy. He said this as if he was provoking Yi. Shiba, who was standing beside him, has not spoken until now. It's just that the momentum on his body spreads all around. Ready to go anytime. Pity. The two do not know, with Yi the current strength is no longer an enemy they can deal with. The corners of his mouth rose slightly. Yi's figure disappeared instantly. Even with the strengths of Juno and Shiba, they couldn't see his movement clearly. Do you want to shoot? I'm free. When Yi appeared again, it was already between the two of them. Both hands were pressed against their throats. The sharp fingertips seemed to be able to pierce their throats with just a little force. Juno and Zyba's expressions changed instantly. They looked at each other for a moment. Next moment. Between the splashes of masonry, a huge crater appeared where the knight had stood before. Well, just kidding. Yi's figure reappeared beside number 8. There was a smile on his indifferent face. Chapter 136_. Auction hall entrance. A group of gang members looked at the huge pothole that was punched by Zyba. Difficulty swallowing a mouthful of saliva. Such exaggerated strength is like a dream to them. I don't need you to guess my identity. Since I received the entrustment of the 10 old men, I will naturally complete it with my heart. Back to number 8. Yi seemed to have regained his indifference. Looking at the smoke generated by Shiba's attack, he opened his mouth to reveal his identity. The two who beat up the enemy Haka would not be able to provoke Yi for no reason. There is a high probability that something happened that he didn't know about. Like Kurapika's whistleblower or something. A person like Kurapika, who is good at using brain power, will not rush without brains alone when facing an enemy that he cannot solve. Instead, find some helpers who can improve your win rate for yourself. The smoke gradually dissipated. The figures of the two beating the enemy appeared again. 14. But the difference from before is that both of them are in a fighting stance at this moment. Really, but according to some kids' information, you seem to have a good relationship with the Phantom Troop. Juno said. The mind power of both hands is condensed into the form of a dragon head. The figure maintains a vigilant posture. The task issued by the top 10 old men to find the stolen auction items. The auction item was taken away by a capable person called Owl. I went to catch Owl, and it has nothing to do with the Phantom Troop. Randomly pull out the task from the day before yesterday. As for whether the two people in front of them believe it or not, Yi doesn't know. Anyway, he has tried his best to hide the identity of the undercover agent. If this is all exposed, there is nothing he can do. Presumably, Chrollo wouldn't say anything about it. Juno and Sheba looked at each other. Seems to be determining something. Quite a while. The two released their vigilance. Really, one or two, now they've all lied to the old man for fun. Really, people are not old, Tilda. Juno sighed. It's just that the person in his mouth is talking about Kurapika or Yi. This is not clear. Well, Tilda, I can't beat you anyway. We're going to find an assassin. Juno finished speaking, and glanced at Sheba beside him. The two of them turned around and left. Prepare to look for Chrollo's figure. Yi looked at the silhouettes of the two who were leaving, with an inexplicable smile on the corner of his mouth. The other side. Kurapika's figure quickly ran towards the Shader Matali building. After receiving the information that Nyan was missing, he left the building and looked in the direction of Melody and others. And a group of people looking for Nyan's information. But just 10 minutes ago, Underworld officials called to inform him that Nyan was present at the Sametali building. And fell into a coma for no apparent reason. After hearing the news, he hurried back to the Color Metal building. Enter the building. Two members of the Nuthra family were waiting. Too late to determine the current state of the building. First ask the two about Nasla's trail. How is it, Nyan, how is she doing now? At the same time, take the elevator to the room where Nyan is. Before arrival. A member of the Nasra family, who had given him Nyan's room number. Nyan boss is not life-threatening now. The doctor checked and said that it may be caused by overwork. The family members quickly reported all the information of the second-generation boss. Speaking room. Several people have come to Nyan's room. Nyan was still in a coma at the moment. Overworked. What a joke. These quack doctors. Kurapika didn't believe the doctor's judgment at all. A woman who sleeps every day in addition to playing. Was diagnosed with overwork. You really don't know what to do with him. Family members on the side. He seemed a little helpless. After all, he was just repeating the doctor's judgment. There are rumors in the gang. Someone with the ability used the identity of the boss to sneak into this building, and then knocked her unconscious. Fortunately, there was a family member beside him. Repeat what you have heard to Kurapika. Let him decide. Cut, it's the Phantom Troop. Thinking that there is already a member of the Spider sneaking in without knowing it. Kurapika's anger was almost uncontrollable. But looking at Nyan, who was still in a coma in front of him, he had no choice but to suppress the anger in his heart. At the same time, he began to think about how to ensure the safety of Nyan. When he came, the outside world had already become a battlefield. It is really not an easy thing to send it out successfully. Think for a long time. Kurapika actually found that the safest place at this time turned out to be the Samatali building. He laughed uncontrollably to himself. Go ahead and send someone to protect this place. The two of you will retransfer the boss to another room for protection. Try not to let the camera see it. Wait here, the event is over. You leave with the boss and meet the Melody. A moment. Regarding the issue of Nyan's safety, Kurapika has already found a solution. Yes, we got it. Kurapika turned and left, the voice of his subordinates faintly heard behind him. Now that Nyan's problems are resolved, he's about to start his own revenge. 11 in the brigade, but it was discovered by other members, which caused the plan to fail. This time will definitely not be the case. Ostra's mother Gazui, after receiving my news, you should have a hand on Yi. Yi guessed right. His news was revealed by Kurapika to the two who beat the enemy. With their strength, they don't seek to solve Yi, as long as they can seriously injure him. With this thought in mind, Kurapika stepped into the elevator. His idea was the same as that of Jia Nuo, and he started looking for the brigade members directly from the top of the building. Although this method is very laborious. But under the premise that there is no information at present, this seems to be the most suitable way to find it. When he walked out of the top floor of the elevator and was about to climb towards the top floor, Coincidentally, the voices of two beating the enemy happened right next to him. Chapter 137 _ Cemetally building. In a room on the top floor. Krolo's figure is in it. Next to the floor-to-ceiling windows is a piano that looks expensive. Judging from the thoughts covered around it, there is a high probability that Krolo stole the power from someone unknown. A melodious voice, accompanied by the constant dancing of Krolo's hands, came from the piano. In conjunction with the outside of the building, the sound of explosions, gunfire and mourning sounded from time to time. Here he played this piece of music that belonged to the Phantom Troupe. Exciting notes kept popping under his hands. Playing under this tall building, he seemed to control the entire Yukushin. The brigade's revenge had unfolded before she knew it. Beside him was the killer who saw in the monitoring room that he had stolen Nyan's ability instantly. Judging from the few pieces of flesh and blood left, he seemed to be swallowed by some animal with sharp teeth. Blood spilled all over the place. Crunch. The door to the room was slowly pushed open by an outsider. Three figures entered the room. The person who came first had a charismatic figure, an indifferent expression, and long silver wavy hair. Just from the exposed muscles, it can be seen that his body has definitely been trained without hammering. The other was slightly shorter, with white hair and beard, an elderly man. But the imposing aura that faintly exudes from his body shows that he is not that simple. The last one was a young man with short blonde hair and dressed in ethnic costumes. The aura on his body is a little immature, but judging from the high-spirited fighting spirit on his body, it is not an easy existence to deal with. Three are Juno Dadike, Shiba Dadike, and Kurapika. Three people. Hear voices from behind. Krolo stopped playing. The red book on the side was slowly closed. The piano playing an exciting tune slowly dissipated into the air. The number of people was a bit unexpected, but it's not a big problem. Slowly stood up from the seat, turned to look in the direction of the three. Long time no see. Krolo's icy eyes shot directly at Shiba, without the slightest expression on his face. It seemed like a normal greeting. Remember me? Shiba looked at Krolo, recalling a mission many years ago. How could I forget? You killed one of my comrades. That really bothers you. The conversation between the two was separated by a distance of more than 10 meters, although there was no conflicting tone, just like ordinary passers-by. But Krolo gradually had a faint killing intent on his body, which changed the surrounding atmosphere invisibly. Kurapika, who was on the side, subconsciously looked in the direction of Shiba after hearing the conversation between the two. He did not expect that a member of the Phantom Troupe would die at the hands of Shiba. This gave Kurapika a rough guess about Shiba's strength. This little brother, although we are not familiar with each other, since we have received the same commission, let's cooperate temporarily. What do you think? Far away. Shiba and Krolo began to compete with each other to kill. Juno took the opportunity to discuss cooperation with Kurapika. No problem, my ability has a binding effect. After locking the enemy, I can force the opponent to enter a state of absolute, so that the enemy cannot use the ability of the mind as the basis for cooperation. Kurapika revealed his abilities. The sound was only enough for the two people beside him to hear. Of course, in the face of a killer like beating the enemy, he did not rashly drag out all his abilities. Even the revealed middle finger restraint chain concealed its own restrictions. Force the opponent to enter the absolute state. This ability is really troublesome. Kurapika rolled his eyes. Obviously, I didn't expect this guy with thick eyebrows and big eyes to have such a sinister ability. The battle of the capable ones relies on the development of Nyan's skills and abilities. But fighting Kurapika, as long as you are bound by his abilities, is equivalent to ending the battle. Kurapika's dangerous level, because this ability of his has been improved a little. Jia Nuo, who is old and mature, naturally knows that he has not revealed all his abilities. The final evaluation is made after a thorough understanding of him. The cooperation discussion is over. Shiba started walking in Chrollo's direction. At the same time, he reminded Juno and Kurapika to be careful about Chrollo's abilities. Juno nodded casually. He also knew something about Chrollo's abilities. Quote. Well, although it's a bit unfair for you to play 3 times, but who told you that you didn't have a helper yourself? Just when Juno's voice fell, the 4 people in the room moved almost at the same time. The figures of Juno, Shiba, and Chrollo instantly disappeared in place. Only Kurapika was left, waiting for the opportunity to shoot. A figure flashed across the sky. Chrollo's spin jumped and avoided Shiba's attack. The next moment, on the trajectory of his dodging, Juno's figure had already appeared in advance. Several consecutive hand knives stabbed towards Chrollo's neck. Facing this sudden attack, Chrollo shifted several positions and tried to avoid it. But he didn't realize that a chain came to him without realizing it. Juno's eyes changed slightly, speeding up the attack on his hand. Force Chrollo's figure towards the direction of the chain. In this regard, Chrollo did not notice at all, dodging Juno's continuous thrusts. The next moment, his complexion suddenly changed, and he subconsciously rolled towards the next one. Dodged a sneak attack. Puff. The chain was inserted where Chrollo was standing. Broken clothes, stuck in chains. Che, it's almost my yun. Kurapika was not disappointed, waiting for the next opportunity. But he didn't find it. In a corner not far away, I do not know when another figure appeared, leaning against the wall with his arms crossed on his chest. Looking at the scene of the constant fighting on the field, Reiatsu was covering his body, waiting for the best opportunity to attack. Chapter 138 After tumbling to escape Kurapika's sneak attack, Chrollo secretly analyzed his abilities. According to Wojin's description, when he was sneak attacked by chain hands, the moment the body is entangled in chains, it cannot be judged using mindfulness. The high probability is the ability to force the opponent to be unable to use the ability or psychic power. Thoughts flashed in an instant. Next moment, Shiba's attack followed. There was a lot of thought in his fist, and he hit Chrollo, who was still rolling on the ground and didn't get up. A strong body is not a drag on him. The speed of the body was not affected in the slightest. A few quick punches in a row. Ling Lai's fist blows to the ground. Chrollo hadn't stood up yet, and could only dodge Shiba's attack by rolling several times in a row. In the distance, Kurapika's chains lurked toward Chrollo again. Junuo, who was beside him, was not idle either. Put your hands in front of you in an up and down position. A lot of thoughts gathered in his hands. A small thought energy group condensed in his hands. The air mass flickered and expanded dozens of times in an instant, enveloping Junuo himself. Afterwards, the mind as in Junuo's hands formed the appearance of a dragon head. Open black lens bracket dragon head drama painting tooth protrusion close black lens bracket. This is the ability that Juno developed as a change system. Next moment, as Juno's body pressed down, his hands swayed continuously. A mind power dragon of more than 10 meters long flexibly ran towards Chrollo under the control of Junuo. It can be said, at this moment, Chrollo was facing the siege of 3 people at the same time. Che, 1 on 3 is too much. Feeling the attacks on him from different directions, a red book in Chrollo's hand was materialized. Open black lens bracket extreme intent of thieves close black lens bracket. Wow. The pages kept flipping and eventually stopped on one page. On this page is a photo of a male capable person and information about his abilities. Christy Petty _ Age, 21. Manipulator. Ability, Traveler. Ability status, Not dead. Ability introduction. The body travels into a different dimension, with a time limit of 10 seconds. The moment the page turns here, Chrollo's figure disappeared out of thin air, as if it didn't exist at all. General in the world. Next moment, 3 different attacks hit the floor where Krollo was previously at the same time. With this loud noise, the floor shattered instantly. The attack was unsuccessful, and Krollo's figure disappeared mysteriously. Zyba and Junuo came together subconsciously, guarding the surroundings back to back. Look around. Not a single trace of Krollo was noticed. The next moment, the two seemed to think of something at the same time. Looking in the direction of Kurapika, a mysterious figure appeared there. The two people's thoughts condensed under their feet and ran quickly. Krollo only appeared half of his body, and the other half of his body seemed to be hiding in another world. The Bian-style dagger pierced Kurapika's abdomen at some point. Although the threat level of Kurapika among the three is not the greatest, compared with the two enemies who have been together for many years and cooperated tacitly, a lone enemy like Kurapika is easier to deal with. The critical moment was dodged. Krollo figure completely walked out of the mysterious space. Looking at Kurapika, who jumped back and distanced himself, his tone was full of regret. Just a sneak attack. Kuroro's heart was originally aimed at Kurapika. He was sure that his sneak attack could completely hide his killing intent and thoughts. The sound of the Bian-style knife breaking through the air still made Kurapika sense it. A large number of chains emerged from his hands, so that the knife that originally stabbed the heart was stabbed in the abdomen. Two figures suddenly appeared. Boom tilde tilde. A huge energy bomb appeared from Shiba's hand and slammed into Krollo's direction fiercely. A potion with green light appeared in Junuo's hand. Throw it in the direction of Kurapika. Be careful, Junior. Leaving this sentence, Junuo's figure quickly ran. If it wasn't for Kurapika to contain Krollo, Juno would not care about this junior at all. Slap tilde. The antidote was firmly caught by Kurapika. At this moment, his face was pale and colorless, and it was obvious that the poisoning was deep. Not much to say, just drink it. The antidote produced by the slaughtering enemy family is powerful. Seconds. His face turned rosy again, and his strength gradually recovered. Controlling his own chains, he treated the injured abdomen. Open black lens bracket. The chain of thumbs healing. Close black lens bracket. His eyes had already turned blood red at some unknown time, but they could not be seen clearly under the cover of beauty contact lenses. Momentary effort. The wound was completely healed, but he subconsciously left the chain of healing on his body. In this way, when you are injured in subsequent battles, you can treat them as soon as possible. The abdominal wound recovered though. Kurapika, but did not continue to attack. After a brief fight with Krollo, he saw the gap between himself and the three in the distant battle. Although the absolute time in the state of red eyes will change his personality for a short time, any ability of the whole system can be played to 100%. Power, speed, and more advanced psychic skills are available. These are gaps that cannot be bridged. He has to hide himself deeper and eliminate his breath more perfectly, so that he can take the opportunity to force Krollo into a state of absolute. While thinking, Kurapika looked around. Try to find a position where he can hide his figure without affecting his sneak attack, and then hide. Next moment, his eyes trembled violently. In the corner of this room, a man he had forgotten appeared in his sight. Mouth keeps changing, seems to be saying something. It's been found, what a hassle. Kurapika, who understands this mouth shape, hasn't reacted yet. There was a pain in the chest. Look down. A blood-colored hole appeared in the middle of his chest. He could even pass through the hole and see the scenery behind him. How is it possible? With a question, Kurapika's figure slammed to the ground. It's a pity, if you don't look around, I don't need to shoot. When confused, Kurapika vaguely heard a cold voice. Add another chapter for Soul and Concave Dream. Starting tomorrow, I will add updates to the big guys who have tipped the book every day. Thanks for the big support. Chapter 139 _ Hidden in the corner at night. Anyi watched as Krollo was beaten 3 times in the distance. It is said that it is 3-on-1, but it can be seen from Krollo's counterattacks from time to time. Although he was a little difficult to deal with, that didn't mean he couldn't deal with it. The Blood Vine replica brought him an increase far beyond the imagination of ordinary people. It's just that the strength of the sudden increase is inevitably a little uncomfortable. Just in time to beat the enemy and the appearance of Kurapika, he found the object of training. This is also the reason why Yi paddled at ease and never played. Pity. A beautiful paddling plan was broken because of Kurapika tilde. Goo. Number 8 swallowed a mouthful of saliva with difficulty. The terrifying aura made it difficult for her to breathe. Holding the pistol hard, at this moment she felt so small. The mind of the 8th is to awaken naturally today. The world of mindfulness is still at the stage of unfamiliar exploration. The battle between Krollo and Juno and others made her so excited that she couldn't help herself. Power, that's power. A smile emerges from the corners of the mouth. Read, she also woke up. Thinking of this, number 8 couldn't help but look at Yi next to him. Look at him, at a similar age, but his strength is already so powerful. Look at yourself, only after being an ordinary person for so many years did you realize that there is such a world. If she hadn't awakened this power, she would have to wait for revenge, and she didn't know how many years she would have to wait. Next moment. The smile on the corners of his mouth returned to normal. You seem to have already possessed the ability to read, don't you? And you don't teach me in advance, it's really stingy tilde. Although angry, there is no trace of deterrence. But that's what she wanted. Far away. The battle between Krollo and the two beating the enemy had stopped at some point. The three re-separated and stood in different positions. Turn your attention to Yi and number 8. The arrival of the two people did not even notice the three of them. The gap in strength seems to have been reflected. The sudden appearance of the two made the atmosphere gradually darken. Shiba, I'll hold Yi, you can solve Krollo as soon as possible. Juno moved his hands. Got it, Dad. Shiba's muscles tightened again. There is no doubt that Juno's strength is stronger than Shiba. It is already the best choice for the powerful one of the two to deal with Yi, whose strength is unknown. The arrival of Yi was no surprise to the enemy. When Kurapika told the two of Yi's possible reversal. Beating the enemy is ready to face Yi again. The provocation at the door of the auction house was just a test of Yi's strength. The words Yi said casually in the killer's gathering room made the two of them feel a little jealous of his strength. Beating the enemy's family to join the killer industry for many years. Caution is the first principle. If not, the Haka family who beat the enemy would not have been able to continue to pass down the killer's career for so many years. The atmosphere is getting more oppressive. Only number 8 seems to have not seen the current atmosphere. Beside Yi complained that he didn't help him wake up. Unfortunately, Yi didn't want to ignore her. I learned to read in October last year. Leaving such a sentence, he walked towards Junuo. The performance of number 8 on the night was very disappointing. The awakening of Nyan is not a simple matter. Even if the two used to be partners, why did Yi tell her about Nyan? Number 8's sensory value plummeted in Yi's heart. After this mission is over, there will be no possibility of partnering with her. Since then, number 8 has been here on Yi, no different from passers-by. The figure walked towards Jianuo at will, without any defense, and his body was full of flaws. You shouldn't take out the antidote. 10 meters away. Yi pair said such a sentence to Junuo, which seemed to be somewhat inexplicable. But Yi knew that Juno could understand the meaning of this sentence. Yes, the old man made some miscalculations. Juno glanced at Kurapika lying on the ground in the distance. But as a rookie, it is very rare for him to be able to participate in our battle. Kurapika's information, how could he not know how to beat the enemy Haka family? Beat up the future owner of the enemy guest. Flowers. Will they let it go and make friends who don't know the details at will? Impossible. The information of Kurapika and others has long appeared in the hands of their intelligence department, in order to analyze whether there is a threat to the strange eyes. In their judgment, Kurapika was not rated very high. A puppet who lives only for revenge cannot get into their eyes. It's just that Kurapika's performance today changed his opinion. Juno subconsciously glanced at Kurapika, who fell to the ground. His eyes were ready to be drawn back to Yi-Yi's body. His eyes narrowed for a moment, then returned to normal the next moment. As if nothing had happened. 0. The body pressed down slightly, the bones of both fingers moved, and sharp fingernails emerged from the fingertips. Emits a sharp glow. You said that you almost died with nitro in the last commission, so let this old man come and see your current strength. The moment the voice fell, Yi-Yi and Junuo moved almost at the same time. Junuo's figure quickly ran towards Yi-Yi's left hand. Before figuring out Yi-Yi's strength, Junuo didn't plan to attack rashly. Planned to use several side attacks to judge how far his strength has grown. This allowed him to greatly increase the chance of delaying Yi-Yi. Hold on. Junuo's goal is just to hold off Yoichi. The battle in Meteor Street made him know that the kid in front of him was no longer something he could solve with his own strength. The terrifying speed made number 8 on the side dazzled. He could hear the sound, but he couldn't see the figures of the two of them. Is this the world of the strong? Interesting, really interesting. The smile slowly collapsed. The corners of his mouth opened wider and wider. It's funny, it's too late to kick me out now, I've seen the world. Eyes subconsciously condensed thoughts. Condensation, when no one taught it, number 8 instinctively used it. Since you don't tell me, then, I will take it with my own hands, this is not too much, right? Chapter 140 While running towards Yi-Yi's left hand, Junuo also moved towards the dimly lit corner. The figure flickered a few times, leaving countless afterimages wrapped around Yi-Yi. Beat the enemy Haka secret skills limb song. Yi-Yi once saw the use of this trick on 3 of the enemies who beat the enemy. It can be said, Yi-Yi already had a certain understanding of the limbs. Even after seeing it a few times, you can use it at will. After all, use special steps to form an afterimage, attract the attention of the enemy, and instantly hide the figure. He is also very good at it. Yi-Yi's figure, with the change in the pace between his legs when walking, the angle of the figure changes, leaving a few afterimages and disappearing into the hall. Hidden in the dark, Juno frowned slightly. Meteor Street Fight. 1701 blocked them with special abilities, forcing him and Shiba out of their limbs. And although Ilmi had fought Yi-Yi, he thought his information was not important. Therefore, it is not shared with the family. This made Junuo unaware that Yaiki could use a step similar to the limb bend. He can only judge his ability at the moment based on his experience of fighting against Yi-Yi in the cave at that time. Yi-Yi has a skilled assassination technique, he knows this. Is it developed after seeing the limbs, or it's my own? But no matter what kind of possibility, it seems that Yi-Yi's achievements in infiltrating this aspect are no worse than beating the enemy Haka. This moment of thinking, Juno didn't realize that the pace of his running had changed in an instant. PFF'd. The right hand covered by Reiatsu slid across Juno's arm with ease. Blood gushing out. An old arm soared into the air. CC. Accompanied by a sound of friction. Juno's figure reappeared in this hall. He looked at his bleeding left arm. The right hand quickly tapped twice in it. In an instant, the muscles begin to close and the symptoms of blood loss are resolved. Just like what Nitro did when his limbs were cut off by Malum. Hemostasis completed. Juno looked up at Yi-Yi. He was just flicking his right hand, and the blood on his hand was spilled on the ground. Why, he could have killed me just now. There was a hint of doubt in the old voice. Yi-Yi's attack perfectly hides the killing intent in Reiatsu. It was not until his arm was severed that Junuo felt Yi-Yi's surprise attack. It stands to reason that, being able to approach him silently, he can cut off his neck with one hand and solve this battle. There is no need to cut off an arm that is irrelevant to the injury. Yi Yi was a little suspicious. Isn't your purpose to hold me back? In that case, I don't need to kill you. Crollo didn't pay for killing and beating enemies. And now killing an ability player can only contribute 0.01% of the unlocking progress to him. In addition to killing Juno, beat the enemy, it will cause a series of troubles. It can be said. The option to kill Juno was not in Yi Yi's plan from the beginning. After all, not only is the money not given in place, it will also cause trouble. The quiet and steady Go Yibo, isn't it fragrant? It's enough to be a happy fisherman. A cold voice came out. Next moment, Yi Yi's figure disappeared again. Juno's eyelids twitched. Bad foreboding. The breath of thought emerges from the foot. The leg muscles swell rapidly. 2 corrugated potholes appeared at his feet. The figure quickly jumped into the air. Next moment, Yi Yi's figure appeared in the position where he had just stood. Jia Nuo dodged Yi Yi's hand knife dangerously. At the same time, Nianqi gathered at the broken arm, and a purple Nianqi arm condensed and formed. A person with the ability to change. It is not difficult to make a mind arm using mind energy. What's more, in his killer career, a broken arm is not an uncommon thing. The thoughts gathered again, and a small group of thoughts gathered in his hands. Accompanied by a flicker of the air mass. The thought group suddenly expanded dozens of times, covering Junuo himself. Nianqi formed the appearance of a dragon head in Junuo's hands. Open black lens bracket dragon head drama painting tooth protrusion close black lens bracket. Compared with the dragon head drama when attacking Crollo, this time is undoubtedly much smaller. Only a few meters in length. But it's enough for now. It seems that it took a long time to use dragon head drama tooth protrusion. But for Juno, it was nothing more than an action completed at the moment of jumping into the air. Ignoring the state of his body floating in the air at this time, he directly controlled Tooth to attack Yuichi. The long-spirited dragon exuding purple light, under the control of Jia Nuo, is like a real dragon, nimbly and quickly approaching Yi Yi. This moment, he seemed to have forgotten what had happened to him. Yi Yi stretched out a single palm, and the spiritual pressure gathered inside the palm. Wang tilde. A transparent and colorless spiritual pressure barrier appeared in front of him. He completely resisted the long dragon of thought that was attacking him, without being attacked at all. Cut. It's the trick again. See, long to opera painting Yatu, as useless. Junuo simply used the thrust generated by the attack to pull the distance between himself and Yi Yi once again. The figure flipped a few times in the air and fell steadily towards the ground. At the moment of the flip, under his perception, a figure quickly approached him. Crap. Yi Yi's movement speed exceeded his expectations. At this point in the air, flipping. Juno frowned, unable to reach time to avoid. Before he had time to think, his right hand condensed a lot of thought energy, and after a short charge, a huge thought energy group formed in his hand. The turbulent thoughts radiated purple lightning, just like the performance of using Dragon Head Opera painting Feng Tu. While condensing his thoughts, Jia Nuo kept compressing these thoughts. Next moment, Nianqi wave reached its limit and was shot by Junuo in the direction of Yi Yi. The purple energy storage cannon distorts the surrounding air. This trick. It's Juno's least favorite trick. As a killer, this move is too dazzling. But like his dazzling appearance, his power is beyond doubt. A terrifying roar resounded in the room.